Right where I was at, or
Yeah.
okay. The first thing that I want to talk about is that I've worked for Abbott Hospital for 17 years. When I started at the hospital, I made $5 an hour, and at that time I qualified for medical assistance, for food stamps, for daycare assistance. Since the 17 years that I've worked there, I make quite a bit more now, but still very, very middle class, far from upper class. I have 5 children now instead of 1 child, and I have to pay for my own medical. And since I've had to pay for my own medical, I've learned that I was almost better off making $5 an hour to have somebody cover my medical benefits. Now that I pay my own, I have to pay $400 a month for my premium. I have to pay 10 or 20% of my total bill. I have a $5,000 deductible. If I go to the emergency room, like Shawnee's showing you, I have to pay 45% of the total bill. Most people, if they are aware of what an emergency room bill could be, it could be $5,000, it could be $10,000. I recently had a couple of situations where I had to use the emergency room, and shortly after I had my husband lose his job. My eldest daughter, Bobby, has seizure disorder, and we had to take her in. And then my 4-year-old daughter swallowed a nickel, and we had to have it surgically removed. The bill for the nickel alone was $2,500, and that was our 10% of the bill. After that, like I said, my husband lost his job for 6 months, and during that time we had to use credit cards, and we had to use our savings and part of our daughter's savings. And when it got to the point where we couldn't live off the credit cards anymore, we had to refinance. And when we refinanced, we took out more than the house is worth in order to get it to a point where we at least owe every month what we make. It sounds okay because we were able to come out of it okay, but now if anything were to happen, if the hospital were to lay me off, or if my husband were to become sick, we would lose the house. The reason why that comes really close to heart is because in the 17 years that I've worked at the hospital, they've had, I think, 5 or 6 different layoffs of 500 people a year. This last year, most of the people that they laid off were longtime people that had worked there longer than me, 25 years, 30 years. And so it took away my security blanket completely. I used to think if you dedicated enough time to a place that you would never lose your job. I since then decided, okay, I'm not secure in my job. I no longer have savings. I no longer have medical coverage that I can afford. I am maxed out in credit beyond belief. And so right now, I am almost exactly the same as a homeless person, except for I pretend like I own my home. I always tell people, nobody really owns their home, because even after you pay off the bank, you still owe the state taxes, you still owe all the different, property tax, everything else. I'm very fearful because with having 5 children that I'm responsible for, if we do have something happen, which is very likely, I don't know what would happen. I don't know how we could stay afloat.
Still, you could say you're kind of middle class or something, or what you say?
Yeah, that's what they call us.
Yeah.
Middle class. We make probably about $59,000 a year because that's when my husband's working, because he's had some problems lately with his jobs. And like I said, he was out of work for 6 months. During the time that he was out of work, our family of 5 was on $30,000. So, but when he does work, then it's about $49,000, $50,000. So around that range. Depends on our income at that time.
Are there many people in your situation?
Oh, I work with, in the hospital, the people that I work with are the doctors, the nurses, the techs, And the doctors make $300 an hour, and they're actually very stable. I don't hear much of them complaining, except for maybe some student loans that they're having problems with. But that's only like 10% of the hospital. The rest of the hospital, the nurses, the medical aides, the housekeepers, everybody else makes probably $20 or less an hour. And that sounds like an enormous amount to a lot of people who are making the $5 or $7 an hour. But they're all losing their house because of some incident. Either somebody came ill, or they took out too many credit cards, or they got too big of a house loan that they couldn't afford. I'd say in my department alone, which is a very small department in the hospital, I know 4 people that are in financial distress right now. Major financial distress. So.
And one of the big reasons is the problems with health insurance, because I don't have a...
Yeah. Health insurance is huge. Like I had said before, when you have 5 people with the possibility of being sick, I mean, chances are you're going to get sick when you have 5 people. I mean, if it's just yourself, you know, God willing, you never get sick. But when there's 5 and there's babies involved, they get ear infections, they get, you know, they swallow nickels, you know. You know, that stuff happens.
You have to pay for everything, a lot of money.
Everything. When we get prescriptions, if it's non-formalin, we have to pay the percentage that they decide. For instance, my daughter had an ear infection, and I went to go get a prescription, and they said that'll be $45. And I said, for antibiotic? And they said yes, because it's not formalin. Well, why it wasn't formalin is because they had a special ingredient in there to make her not have diarrhea. And so if I gave her the antibiotic that caused diarrhea, then it would have been $5. But because I wanted this better one that didn't cause diarrhea with the antibiotic, it was $45. You know, I mean, it's anything that you do that betters your life or your children when it comes to medical benefits or health. You know, our dental coverage pays for preventive. That's it. You know, the cleanings and going and getting checked. Anything else, not a dime. Not a dime.